The aliens of the Zoreth Empire had seen it all. They had conquered countless planets, faced fierce creatures, and dealt with every kind of enemy imaginable. Fear was a word that had no place in their language. Their technology was unmatched, and their warriors were the strongest in the galaxy. Nothing and no one had ever come close to challenging their dominance. That was, until they intercepted a strange signal. It began as a simple hum, a faint pulse of energy traveling through the vast expanse of space. The Zoreth Empire's advanced sensors quickly picked up the unusual signal. It was coming from a distant blue and green planet, the humans' home, Earth. At first, the aliens were curious. It wasn't much, just a weak transmission from what appeared to be an ancient probe launched by the humans, but there was something about it that intrigued them. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. The signal wasn't just a simple call or message. It was an invitation, a challenge. The Zoreth leaders were puzzled. Who would send out such a message to the vastness of space, knowing there was nothing they could possibly gain from it, and who would dare to attract the attention of the greatest empire in the galaxy? The Zoreth commanders convened in their war room, the dark metal walls of their ship humming with power. They studied the transmission closely, replaying it over and over. It was clear. The humans had no idea of the danger they had invited upon themselves. "This is nothing but a call for attention," one of the alien leaders said, his voice calm and cold. "They have no idea what they are dealing with. We will show them the might of the Zoreth Empire." The others agreed. The decision was made. A fleet of warships was sent to Earth's coordinates, ready to claim this insignificant planet. They would make an example out of the humans, showing them that their curiosity was their undoing. As the fleet made its way toward Earth, the aliens laughed among themselves. They had faced entire armies of fierce creatures, the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. And now, they were about to deal with a species that had never even left their planet's atmosphere. Little did they know, they were about to face something they never imagined. Humans. On Earth, the humans were unaware of the great alien fleet that was approaching. But somewhere deep in the vast reaches of space, their fate was already being sealed. The aliens thought they knew fear, but they had no idea what was coming for them. On Earth, the news of the strange signal was just starting to break through. For years, humans had been preparing for the possibility of extraterrestrial life, but no one had expected something like this to happen. The world's space agencies had sent probes out into the universe, but they had only ever received silence in return. Now, a signal had come back, and it wasn't just a simple message, it was something far more mysterious. The United Nations quickly convened a meeting, bringing together the best minds from around the globe. The top scientists, military leaders, and space experts gathered in a secure room, the walls buzzing with energy as they processed the data. "This is it," said Dr. Emily Harris, a leading astrobiologist. "This is a sign that we are not alone. But who, or what, sent it?" Her words echoed through the room. The signal, while faint and distorted, had a pattern. It wasn't random noise. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. The question now was whether it was friendly or hostile. As the signal grew stronger, the urgency increased. The humans didn't have time to sit back and wonder. Earth's defense systems were prepared for many things, but they had never prepared for an alien invasion. It was a good thing they had spent years developing advanced technology, just in case. And now, that technology would be tested. The first response came from Commander Mark Davis, a decorated space commander known for his calm under pressure. He had been preparing for a situation like this his entire career. The military had secretly developed a fleet of spacecraft, built to defend the planet in case of extraterrestrial threats. It wasn't much compared to the alien fleets, but it was humanity's last line of defense. "Get the fleet ready," he ordered, his voice steady. "Prepare for immediate launch." The human fleet was made up of a handful of advanced ships, but they were highly equipped with powerful weapons, communication systems, and state-of-the-art technology. As the ships lifted off from Earth, they entered the vast unknown, headed toward the source of the signal. Mark and his crew had no idea what awaited them, but they were ready for anything. Meanwhile, the world watched in tense silence. The news channels were filled with speculation and fear. Most people had never even considered the possibility that Earth would face an alien invasion. Now, it seemed inevitable. Back in space, the human fleet approached the coordinates of the alien signal. As they got closer, the crew noticed something strange. The signal had grown much stronger, almost as if it were guiding them. It was clear now that whoever, or whatever, had sent the message was waiting for them. "Stay alert," Commander Davis said, his grip tightening on the controls. "We don't know who's out there, but we're not going to back down." The alien ships loomed ahead, their dark silhouettes now visible against the backdrop of distant stars. The human fleet, though small, was determined. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about showing the aliens that humanity wouldn't be intimidated. In the depths of space, the two forces were about to collide. The aliens thought they were the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, but they had never encountered the human spirit, determined, resourceful, and ready to fight for survival. And that, the humans knew, was something the aliens would soon learn to fear. The Zorath Empire's fleet hovered just outside Earth's atmosphere. The aliens had spent years perfecting their technology, and their commanders were confident. They had never encountered a race capable of standing against them, and Earth seemed like just another small, unimportant planet to conquer. Their ships were massive, each one equipped with weapons so powerful that they could wipe out entire civilizations with a single strike. But the humans had no idea what was coming for them. The aliens were sure they would quickly break through Earth's defenses and take control of the planet without much trouble. In the command center of the flagship, General Sithar of the Zorath Empire watched Earth on the large screen before him. He had dealt with countless species, and none had posed any real threat to his people. The humans, from what little information they had gathered, seemed primitive, almost laughable in comparison. Their technology was nothing compared to the advanced weapons the Zorath Empire possessed. "We'll show them what happens when they call out to powers greater than themselves," General Sithar said, his voice cold and commanding. "Prepare the fleet. We'll be ready to engage the moment the humans arrive." The aliens watched as the human ships approached, their sensors picking up the strange Earth vessels. At first, the humans seemed small and insignificant compared to the vast alien fleet. But as the human ships drew closer, the aliens began to notice something unexpected. The human ships were more advanced than they had anticipated. The humans were no longer the primitive species they had assumed them to be. "Unbelievable," muttered one of Scythar's officers. "They've developed technology far beyond what we expected." The human ships were far more nimble and agile than the Zorath fleet had predicted. As they closed in, the aliens tried to lock onto them with their weapons systems. But to their surprise, the human ships seemed to move with a precision and speed that made them hard to hit. The aliens fired several blasts, but the humans dodged them with ease. General Sithar's calm exterior began to crack. "What is this? They are evading our weapons like they know what we're going to do before we do it." The Zorath commanders had never encountered anything like this. The human ships were using tactics that seemed to be drawn from years of military experience. They weren't just reacting to the alien moves. They were anticipating them, outmaneuvering the aliens at every turn. "This can't be happening," Scythar growled. "Prepare the shockwave cannons. If we can't catch them, we'll force them into submission." But just as the Zorath fleet was about to fire their most powerful weapons, the human ships pulled off an unexpected move. They launched a series of counterattacks that threw the entire alien fleet into chaos. Small, targeted bursts of energy from the human ships disabled several of the Zorath warships, leaving the alien commanders in stunned silence. "This isn't possible," Sithar yelled in disbelief. "These humans, they're not like any species we've encountered. They're different." The Zorath fleet had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. They had thought the humans would be easy to overpower. Now they were beginning to realize that their overconfidence had put them in a dangerous position. For the first time, the Zorith commanders felt something they had never known before. Fear. The humans had only just begun their fight, and the Zorith Empire had no idea what they were in for. The Zorith Empire's fleet had been thrown into disarray. Despite their superior technology and overwhelming numbers, the humans were proving to be an unexpected challenge. General Sithar paced back and forth in the command center of the flagship, his eyes narrowed in frustration. The once confident leader of the Zorith army had begun to feel the weight of doubt. These humans, how are they doing this? He muttered to himself. We should have crushed them by now. It wasn't just their technology. It was their strategy. The humans weren't just reacting. They were thinking ahead, anticipating every move the Zorith fleet made. They used clever tactics, hitting the aliens where they were weakest. The human ships, while smaller and less advanced, moved like a swarm, using their agility to outmaneuver the heavy alien vessels. On the human side, Commander Mark Davis was calm as ever. He had seen moments of danger before, but this was different. They weren't just fighting to defend their planet. They were fighting for their survival. The alien fleet was far more powerful, but the humans had something the aliens didn't: the element of surprise. Keep up the pressure, Commander Davis ordered, his voice steady as he surveyed the screens. Don't let them get organized. We'll hit them where it hurts. The human ships, working together in tight formations, launched another wave of precise attacks. They didn't go for the obvious weak spots. No, the humans aimed for the less noticeable targets: alien communication systems, their weapon control centers, and fuel supplies. Each well-placed strike left the Zorith fleet weaker, more disorganized. One of the alien officers, watching from his ship, turned to Sci-Fi with growing concern. General, their tactics are effective. We're losing control. Our communication lines are down, and several of our ships have been crippled. Sithar clenched his fists in frustration. He had believed the humans would be no match for the Zorith Empire's might, but their relentless and strategic strikes were shaking the very foundation of the fleet. The aliens had underestimated them, and now it was too late to turn back. We have to regain control, Sithar growled, his voice filled with anger. Order all ships to converge on the human fleet. We'll crush them with our full force. But it was no use. The humans anticipated this move too. As the Zorith fleet moved in to encircle them, the human ships split into smaller groups, scattering and making it nearly impossible for the aliens to lock onto any single target. The Zorith ships struggled to keep up, losing their advantage as the human ships slipped through their grasp. Sir, their ships. They're too fast, an officer reported. They've turned our own attack against us. Sithar's anger bubbled over. This is impossible. How are they so coordinated? Commander Davis, still focused, looked at his team. The humans were small, but they were quick, smart, and resourceful. They had used their smaller size to their advantage. They weren't trying to match the aliens in firepower. They were outthinking them, using their superior speed and unpredictability. It was a kind of warfare that the Zorith Empire had never encountered. We've got them right where we want them, Davis said, a calm smile forming on his face. Keep up the pressure. We'll break them down one ship at a time. In the depths of space, the aliens were beginning to feel something they hadn't in centuries: vulnerability. The Zorith Empire was known for its power and dominance, but now it was the humans who were dictating the pace of the battle. The aliens had underestimated the human spirit, and they were starting to realize that it wasn't something they could easily crush. And this was just the beginning. The battle raged on, but something had shifted. The Zorith fleet, once confident in their power, was now on the defensive. General Sithar could feel the tension in the air. The human fleet, though smaller, was proving to be an unpredictable enemy. Their attacks were relentless, and no matter how many ships the aliens destroyed, there were always more humans to fight. Scyther stared at the massive screen in front of him, his knuckles white as he gripped the control panel. His once calm and confident demeanor had given way to frustration and confusion. "We should have won by now," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Behind him, one of his officers, Officer Jelek, spoke in a cautious tone. "General, we've lost another ship. Our weapon systems are failing, and our communications are down across half the fleet." Scyther turned sharply to face him. "I know," he snapped. "We've faced worse than this. We've destroyed entire civilizations with less effort. Why can't we crush these humans?" Jelek hesitated before replying, his voice tense. "It's their tactics, General. They're using strategies we've never seen before. They're outthinking us. We've never faced an enemy who thinks like they do." The words stung Scyther. For the first time in his long military career, he felt doubt creeping in. The Zoreth Empire had prided itself on its unmatched military might. Fear was something the Zoreth didn't know. But now, with every failed strike, with every ship lost, Scyther felt it. A creeping, gnawing sensation at the back of his mind. "Impossible," he muttered, trying to shake the feeling. "We have the superior forces. We should be in control. But why are they doing this to us?" As the hours passed, the alien commanders were forced to admit something they had never considered. They were afraid. The humans had thrown them off balance. The Zoreth Empire, in all its power and pride, was beginning to feel the sting of fear for the first time. A few of the alien officers had already begun to panic. Their once unshakable confidence was starting to crack. "What if they destroy us?" one officer asked, his voice trembling. "What if they actually beat us?" Scyther slammed his fist onto the control panel, causing the screen to flicker. "Enough," he shouted. "We will not fall to fear. This is just another battle. We've faced worse. We will crush them." But the doubt was there. The alien soldiers, once fearless warriors, were starting to show signs of fear. Some hesitated to engage the human ships, unsure if the risk was worth it. Others looked to their commanders, waiting for assurance that victory was still within reach. The once proud Zoreth Empire was on the edge of losing its grip. Back on the human side, Commander Mark Davis and his crew could feel the shift in the alien fleet's behavior. The Zoreth ships were no longer as coordinated. They hesitated before attacking, leaving openings for the humans to exploit. Davis saw it in his crew, too. There was a quiet confidence among them now. They were winning. The enemy, so sure of their superiority, was faltering. "We've got them," Davis said with a small smile. "They're scared." The humans, who had once been the ones to fear the unknown, were now in control. The Zoreth Empire had learned a painful lesson. Underestimating humanity was a mistake, and now it was the aliens who were afraid. The Zoreth had thought they knew fear, but they had no idea what true fear was until they faced the indomitable will of humans. The Zoreth fleet had already suffered losses, and the remaining ships were growing increasingly disorganized. What had once been a powerful, united force was now fractured, struggling to respond to the humans' relentless onslaught. The aliens had underestimated the humans' resilience, and now they were paying the price. General Scyther stood in his command center, his fists clenched in frustration. The human ships, though smaller and fewer in number, had struck them where it hurt the most. Their attacks were precise, aimed at the Zoreth's weak points: communication systems, weapons, and fuel supplies. The humans seemed to anticipate every move the Zoreth made, and the aliens' once unstoppable fleet was now in chaos. "Pull back," Scyther barked. "Get the fleet into formation. We need to regroup before we lose everything." But as the Zoreth ships attempted to reorganize, the humans struck again. This time, they didn't just hit individual ships. They launched a full-scale counteroffensive. The human fleet, using their superior speed and agility, swarmed the alien ships, cutting them off from each other. The Zoreth couldn't respond fast enough. Their ships were too slow, and their weapons couldn't track the fast-moving human ships. "General, they're everywhere." One of Sci-Fi's officers cried out. "We can't keep up with their movements." Sithar's face darkened. He had never thought that the humans would fight this well. The Zorath had always crushed their enemies without effort, but these humans were different. They fought with a determination that the aliens couldn't match. Commander Mark Davis watched as the humans' counterattack unfolded. It was a risky move, but it was working. The Zorath were on the back foot, and it was time to press their advantage. Davis knew that the aliens had no idea how to deal with humans who refused to back down, no matter the odds. "Target their fuel reserves," Davis ordered calmly. "Take out their supply lines. We can finish this now." Human ships swiftly moved in, and with pinpoint accuracy, they attacked the Zorath's vulnerable fuel tanks. One by one, the alien ships erupted in fireballs as their fuel reserves exploded. The Zorath fleet was slowly being reduced to nothing more than burning wreckage. The aliens had always relied on their technological superiority, but now it was clear that their enemies weren't going to let them have the easy victory they expected. "General Sithar, we've lost half of our fleet," another officer reported, his voice trembling. "The humans, they're too much for us. We're out of options." Sithar felt a cold chill run down his spine. The once unshakable leader of the Zorath Empire was now facing the terrifying reality that the humans were winning. Fear had seeped into his heart, and the very thought of defeat seemed impossible to bear. "We will not surrender," he growled, though the words felt hollow. "We will fight until the last ship is gone." But as the Zorath continued to retreat, the humans were gaining ground. Every maneuver they made brought them closer to victory. The alien fleet had no choice but to fall back further, their desperation clear in every action. In the midst of the chaos, Commander Davis stood tall, watching his crew work seamlessly together. They had been prepared for this moment, and now they were showing the aliens what humanity was capable of. "We're almost there," Davis said, his voice firm with resolve. "Keep the pressure on. We can end this today." The Zorath Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The once great empire was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance. The humans were not just defending their planet. They were proving that no enemy, no matter how powerful, could break their will. The humans had fought for their survival, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that fear belonged to those who dared to underestimate them. The Zorath Empire's fleet was in chaos. The humans had pushed them to the brink, and now, the once proud alien warships were retreating into the darkness of space. The battle, which had seemed so certain for the Zorath just days ago, was slipping from their grasp. General Sithar paced back and forth in his command center, his mind racing for a solution. His once confident commanders were now questioning their decisions, and fear was becoming more apparent with each passing minute. "General," one of the officers said hesitantly, "we can't keep running. We're losing ships at an alarming rate. If we don't do something, the humans will wipe us out completely." Sithar stopped pacing and turned sharply to face the officer. His face was dark with frustration. "I know," he snapped. "We cannot afford to lose this battle. The Zorath Empire has never been defeated. We must find a way to end this, or our entire species will be vulnerable." But even as he spoke, Sithar knew that the situation was dire. The humans had exposed a weakness in the Zorath that he hadn't even known existed. The fear they had felt before had become an undeniable truth. The aliens had tried to break the human spirit with their superior firepower, but the humans had only grown stronger. Sithar's mind raced as he thought of a last-ditch plan. There was one weapon, an experimental device, hidden deep within the Zorath flagship, a weapon that could turn the tide of the battle in an instant. It was a risk, and Sithar knew it could backfire, but there were no other options left. "Prepare the shockwave cannons," Sithar ordered. His voice was cold, hard, and determined. "We will use everything we have to destroy the humans once and for all." The shockwave cannons were a new weapon, powerful enough to wipe out entire fleets. The Zorath had developed them in secret, knowing that they would need something capable of overwhelming any threat. Now, the humans had become that threat. The aliens had no choice but to use the weapon, even if it meant risking their own destruction. Meanwhile, Commander Mark Davis and his crew were still closing in on the retreating alien fleet. The human ships had been relentless, pushing the Zorath into a corner. Davis watched the battle unfold on his ship's screens, aware that the aliens were growing desperate. "Something's not right," Davis muttered, his eyes narrowing. "They're pulling back too quickly. They're planning something." The crew around him nodded in agreement. The Zorath were up to something, and the humans couldn't let their guard down now. Davis turned to his tactical officer. "Keep an eye on their movements. They might be setting a trap." As the human fleet closed in, the Zorath activated the shockwave cannons. The weapons unleashed a massive shockwave of energy that rippled through space, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The human ships had no time to react as the shockwave surged toward them. Davis watched in horror as the shockwave tore through space. The force was unlike anything the humans had encountered. The shockwave hit the first wave of human ships, throwing them off course and damaging several of their vessels. For a moment, it seemed like the battle might be lost. But the humans were prepared. As the shockwave passed, the human fleet quickly regrouped, moving into new formations. Davis gritted his teeth. This was far from over. "They think they can scare us with this," Davis said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We'll show them what humans are made of." The alien fleet had tried to push humanity to its limits, but the humans refused to break. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they stood strong. The Zorath had learned that the hard way, and now their desperation was their greatest weakness. The shockwave had hit the human fleet with devastating force, but the Zorath had made one grave mistake. They underestimated humanity's ability to adapt. For a brief moment, it seemed like the battle might have been lost. The shockwave had torn through the human ships, sending them into disarray, and some were badly damaged. But the humans refused to be defeated. Commander Mark Davis stood firm on the bridge of his flagship, watching the aftermath of the shockwave's impact. His heart raced, but his mind was clear. The human fleet was still intact, though some ships had been hit hard. They had survived worse. "Damage report," Davis called out, his voice steady as he surveyed the damage. "Several ships are heavily damaged, but we're not out of the fight yet," one of his officers replied. "We've lost some weapon systems, but our shields are holding. We're still good to go." Davis nodded. "We keep pushing. The Zorath think they've won, but they're wrong. They've underestimated us for the last time." On the Zorath flagship, General Sithar's expression was grim. The shockwave cannons had been their last hope, but the humans had withstood the blast and were regrouping. The retreating alien fleet was now in disarray. Sithar had no choice but to admit that the humans were not the easy target they had assumed. "We've given everything we have," Sithar said, his voice cold but filled with frustration. "Why won't they break?" One of his officers spoke hesitantly. "General, they've already proven that they can adapt. They're not like any species we've encountered." Sithar slammed his fist on the control panel. "I won't let them defeat us," he shouted. "We still have strength in numbers. We'll finish this, once and for all." But deep down, Sithar knew the truth. The Zorath Empire was no longer in control. The fear that had once been a distant feeling was now a looming presence in every corner of the fleet. The Zorath, with all their advanced technology and power, were starting to panic. Back on Earth, the human fleet, despite the damage, was beginning to press their advantage. The Zorath were no longer the fearsome, unshakable empire they had once been. The humans had shown them that fear wasn't a one-way street. "We've got them on the run," Davis said to his crew, his eyes locked on the screen. "Now's the time to finish this. Target their remaining weak points. Don't let them regroup." As the human ships launched another wave of attacks, the Zoreth fleet began to break apart. The Zoreth commanders, who had once felt invincible, now struggled to maintain any semblance of control. Their numbers were dwindling, and their ships were being picked off one by one. The Zoreth had no choice but to flee, retreating back into the darkness of space, leaving behind the wreckage of their once great empire. The human fleet had won. The Zoreth had been defeated not by superior technology or firepower, but by the unbreakable will of humanity. The battle for Earth had been won, and the humans had proven that no matter how powerful the enemy, they would never surrender. As the last of the Zoreth ships disappeared into the void, Commander Davis allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The war was over, and Earth was safe. The Zoreth had thought they knew fear, but they had never faced the resolve of the human spirit. The final remnants of the Zoreth fleet were barely holding together. General Sithar, once confident in his empire's superiority, now stood in a command center filled with flickering lights and silent officers. His fleet had been crushed, not by the overwhelming might of the humans' technology, but by something far more terrifying: their unyielding willpower. Report. Scyther's voice was hollow as he turned toward his remaining officers, who stood silently, their eyes betraying the defeat they had long tried to ignore. "We have lost contact with the majority of our ships, General." The humans, one officer paused, his voice barely a whisper. "They're relentless. Every time we regroup, they find a new way to tear us apart." Sithar's jaw clenched. He had thought their shockwave would break the humans. He had believed their superior power would crush them once and for all. But what he had underestimated was the single greatest force in the universe: the will of humanity. The human ships, though battered and broken, had refused to surrender. Time and time again, the Zoreth had expected them to falter, but each time the humans regrouped, their resolve growing stronger. They did not care how advanced the Zoreth technology was or how many ships the aliens had. They would not give up. They would not back down. On the human side, Commander Mark Davis stood in the middle of a bustling bridge, his crew working in perfect unison. Their victory wasn't guaranteed yet, but Davis could feel the tide of battle turning. He had seen the Zoreth make mistake after mistake, and now they were out of options. "We've almost won," Davis said, his eyes scanning the star-filled expanse outside the ship's window. "They're broken. The Zoreth don't have the strength to fight anymore." But even as he spoke, he knew that the Zoreth Empire's desperation would drive them to fight until the very end. They had one last weapon, one that the humans hadn't fully anticipated. Sithar's fleet may have been broken, but the Zoreth weren't giving up just yet. They had one final desperate measure they could take, a last-ditch effort to erase the human threat once and for all. The fleet was retreating to a nearby asteroid field, where an ancient weapon had been hidden away for centuries. It was the ultimate weapon, capable of wiping out an entire fleet in seconds. "We'll use it," Scyther said, his voice low. "We'll end this now." The weapon was a massive energy pulse, hidden deep inside an asteroid. The Zoreth had always kept it as a last resort. They knew that if they could unleash its power, they could wipe out the remaining human ships and reclaim their empire's dominance. But as Scyther gave the order, he couldn't shake the growing unease in his chest. On the human side, Commander Davis saw the movement. The remaining Zoreth ships were headed toward the asteroid field, and Davis immediately knew what they were up to. "Deploy all ships," he commanded. "They're going to activate something big. We need to stop them before it's too late." With a final push, the human ships rallied together, cutting through the asteroid field with precision. The Zoreth weapon loomed ahead, and the humans were determined to stop it. But even as they closed in, they saw something that would change the battle forever. The Zoreth weapon was enormous, a glowing mass of energy built into an asteroid. But it was too late for the aliens to activate it fully. The humans, with their unyielding will, had already closed the gap. The Zoreth fleet, too broken and disorganized to defend the weapon, had no chance. The final blow came quickly. Human ships struck the weapon's core, disabling it before it could unleash its deadly power. The Zoreth had failed, and their last weapon had been neutralized. On the battlefield, the human fleet, battered but proud, had won. The Zoreth Empire, once so sure of its power, had been defeated, not by their advanced technology, but by the human will that had never wavered. The Zoreth had learned a painful lesson that day. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought because they would never give up. The battle was over. The once mighty Zoreth fleet was in ruins, scattered across the stars like broken fragments of a once great empire. The human ships, battered but still intact, floated victorious in the silence of space. There was no triumphal music, no loud cheering, just the quiet relief that came with the realization that Earth had been saved, that humanity had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. General Sithar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the screen, the view of the human ships lingering before him. His empire had fallen. His warriors had failed, and for the first time in his life, he understood fear. "I cannot believe this," he muttered, his voice strained. "How could we lose to them? How could they stand up to us?" His officers, once proud and loyal, remained silent, their heads lowered in shame. The Zoreth Empire, which had once dominated the galaxy, had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by the resilience and determination of humanity. The humans, so small and insignificant in the eyes of the Zoreth, had turned the tables with their unrelenting willpower. "We fought until the end," Scyther said, his voice low. But it wasn't enough. In the human fleet, Commander Mark Davis stood with his crew, watching the final moments of the alien retreat. There were no words to describe the feeling in the air. The battle had been brutal, and they had lost many good people along the way. But in the end, they had won. Earth was safe. "It's over," Davis said quietly, as the last of the Zoreth ships disappeared into the blackness of space. "We did it. We've shown them what humanity is made of." The crew remained silent for a moment, each person reflecting on the battle that had just ended. It wasn't just a military victory. It was a testament to the human spirit, to the idea that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how dark the odds, humanity would never surrender. The Zoreth Empire had thought they knew fear. They thought they knew what it was like to face enemies, to crush civilizations, but they had never faced a species like humanity before. They had never fought against the will to survive, the relentless desire to protect their own. As the human ships returned to Earth's orbit, the crew of each vessel breathed a sigh of relief. The battle was over, but the story of humanity's triumph over the Zoreth would spread far beyond their planet. The Zoreth might have believed they were the most powerful force in the galaxy, but they had learned the hard way that no matter how strong you are, no matter how advanced your technology is, you cannot defeat a people who refuse to give up. And as Earth's skies cleared and the stars shone brightly overhead, it became clear that humanity had claimed its place in the galaxy, not through force, but through sheer willpower. They had shown the universe that fear was not theirs to command. The Zoreth had learned a painful lesson. The humans had won, not because they were stronger, but because they fought with a strength that came from deep within. The kind of strength that no enemy, no matter how powerful, could ever truly overcome.